I had spent weeks planning a perfect anniversary dinner for Olivia and me. I wanted everything to be flawless. A romantic evening at the restaurant she had been talking about for years, ever since our third anniversary. She loved the place, always going on about its food, the view, the atmosphere. I thought maybe, just maybe, if I recreated that memory, it could reignite the spark we once had. I was filled with hope, holding on to the belief that this night could be a turning point for us. Along with the dinner reservation, I had something special prepared. I had ordered a custom necklace, a fine chain with a small, elegant pendant engraved with our wedding date. It wasn't just a gift, it was a symbol, a reminder of everything we had built together. I even rehearsed a speech, heartfelt and genuine, where I planned to remind her of our shared journey, the laughter, the challenges we overcame, the family we created. I truly believed that if she heard those words, she might remember what we once meant to each other. But none of that mattered. When we arrived at the restaurant, the view was stunning. The city lights sparkled beneath the sky, and for a moment, it felt like we were stepping into something magical. But as we sat down at the table, Olivia's expression shifted. She seemed distant, nervous even. Then, without any warning, she dropped a bomb that shattered everything I had prepared for. She looked at me and said she had been cheating on me for the past 2 years. 2 years. And she wasn't telling me this to ask for forgiveness. She was telling me because she had already decided to leave.
Just like that.
I remember the weight of her words hitting me like a cold wave. Time seemed to slow down. I didn't know how to react, didn't even know how to breathe. But somehow, instead of lashing out or breaking down, I stayed calm. I looked her in the eyes, raised my glass, and toasted to her new life. Even I was surprised by how steady my voice sounded. It wasn't because I didn't care. It was because something inside me broke in a way that made anger seem pointless. After a few moments of silence, I began to ask her questions. I didn't yell or accuse, I just asked.
Who was he?
How long had it been going on? What did she see in him? Her responses were vague, and she kept avoiding my gaze. Her confidence seemed to fade with every question. There was a flicker of guilt in her eyes, a shadow of uncertainty in her voice. That's when I realized she wasn't as sure about her choices as she wanted to appear. What she didn't know was that I had been suspicious for some time. Her behavior had changed: late nights, distant looks, constant texting. A few months earlier, I had hired a private investigator. I needed the truth, not just for my own peace of mind, but to protect myself and my children if things ever came to the worst. The investigator had given me everything: pictures, messages, times, dates. I had kept it all to myself, waiting for the right moment. Now that moment had arrived. In the days that followed, I acted quickly. I released the evidence. I didn't scream or make a scene. I simply let the truth come out. Our friends, her coworkers, even her family saw what she had done. The reaction was swift and brutal. People who once admired her began to distance themselves. Her social life unraveled overnight, and the image she had worked so hard to maintain crumbled around her. When the divorce proceedings began, I came prepared. The evidence was overwhelming, and it left little room for her to argue. In court, the judge recognized the damage Olivia had done and awarded me primary custody of our children. I was determined to give them a stable, loving home, something they desperately needed after the chaos they had witnessed. Olivia's life fell apart. She lost her job, her reputation, and the circle of friends who once adored her. She had to move into a small apartment far from the polished life she was used to. The man she had left me for didn't stick around either. It turned out he wasn't ready for the responsibility that came with being a stepfather or with facing the consequences of their affair. Eventually, he vanished from her life too. Meanwhile, I focused on rebuilding, not just my life, but my children's lives. I made sure they felt safe, loved, and heard. Slowly, we began to find our rhythm again. During this time, I got to know Claire, our neighbor. She had always been kind and supportive, helping out in small ways without ever overstepping. She dropped by with meals when things got tough, offered to watch the kids if I needed a break, or simply listen when I needed to talk. Claire became a steady presence, and over time, Our friendship deepened into something more. It didn't happen overnight. I was cautious, still nursing old wounds. But with her, there was no pressure, just warmth, understanding, and patience. She never judged me or tried to rush me. She simply stood beside me. With Claire's encouragement, I returned to something I had once loved but had given up on: furniture making. What started as a hobby to keep my mind busy soon grew into a thriving side business. I began selling my pieces online and at local markets, and to my surprise, people loved them. For the first time in years, I felt a sense of pride and fulfillment in my work. It wasn't just about making a living, it was about creating something real with my own hands. As the months passed, my bond with Claire grew stronger. We built our relationship on trust and respect. There was no drama, no deceit, just two people who had both been through their share of pain and were ready to try again. I started to believe in love again, to believe that I was worthy of something better. Olivia tried to reach out several times. She sent messages, asked to meet, claimed she had made a mistake. But I didn't respond. Not out of bitterness, but because I had finally closed that chapter. I had moved on, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. I didn't want to revisit the pain or reopen old wounds. My focus was on the life I was building, the people who stood by me, and the future I was finally beginning to believe in. Now my days are filled with laughter, sawdust, school runs, and quiet evenings with Claire and the kids. It's not the life I had originally imagined, but it's better in ways I never expected. I've learned to appreciate the small things: the peace of a quiet home, the joy of honest love, the strength that comes from surviving heartbreak. Looking back, I don't regret what happened. It taught me who I was, what I deserved, and what I would never settle for again. And in that painful unraveling of my old life, I found something stronger, something real. I found myself. As the seasons passed, life began to feel whole again. Not perfect, but real, grounded in something meaningful. The kids adjusted better than I'd hoped. With stability at home, their smiles returned, their laughter echoed through the house, and they no longer walked on eggshells. They saw the change, not just in our surroundings but in me. I was more present, more patient. I made time for bedtime stories, weekend hikes, and quiet breakfasts. I listened more and they noticed. Claire became an essential part of our daily lives, not as a replacement for anyone, but as someone who chose to be there without expectation. She never tried to insert herself into the role of a mother, but instead formed her own bond with each of the children. They grew to love her in their own ways, and I watched their relationship with her flourish naturally. Together, we built new traditions: Friday night movies in the living room, summer picnics at the park, Sunday mornings at the local farmers market. Even small things like baking cookies during thunderstorms or working together in my small workshop became cherished rituals. The house, once filled with tension and silence, now radiated warmth, laughter, and peace. Business picked up more than I had anticipated. My handmade furniture gained a following online, and I was soon commissioned to design custom pieces for clients across the state. I turned part of the garage into a dedicated workshop, and what was once a therapeutic pastime became a thriving small business. Each table, chair, or bookshelf I crafted held a piece of me in it. It wasn't just work, it was art, expression, and healing. Claire supported me every step of the way. She celebrated each small victory and encouraged me when I doubted myself. In her, I found a partner, someone who stood beside me, not in front of or behind. Someone who reminded me what love could be when it was honest and nurturing. We took our time, never rushing the relationship. When I eventually asked her to move in, it felt natural, like the next page in a story we were writing together. The kids were excited, and the transition felt seamless. We didn't need grand declarations or fancy ceremonies. Our home, with its messy kitchen and creaky floorboards, became a sanctuary. There were still occasional reminders of the past, moments when old memories surfaced or Olivia's name came up in conversation. Sometimes the kids would ask questions, and I always answered honestly, but gently. I wanted them to understand that people make mistakes, And while some choices carry painful consequences, healing is possible. Olivia eventually stopped reaching out. I don't know where she ended up, and I don't ask. I don't wish her harm, but I don't carry her memory with me anymore. That chapter is closed. Forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. Sometimes it just means choosing peace over bitterness. Years later, as I stood in the backyard watching the kids chase each other through the grass while Claire laughed beside me, I realized something powerful. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was truly living. My journey had taken me through betrayal, heartbreak, and loss, but it also led me to rediscovery, love, and purpose. I had rebuilt my life from the ground up, not with vengeance or regret, but with patience, integrity, and love. And in doing so, I created something better than I ever imagined. I didn't just find happiness again, I created it. One step, one choice, one moment at a time.